from sleep that cold morning. It was barely 5 a.m. The sky outside was still pitch black, and my house was silent except for the distant hum of the refrigerator. I rubbed my eyes, heart already racing a little, wondering who on earth would be at my door at this hour. I slipped on my robe and padded to the front door. Through the peephole, I saw my neighbor, Mr. Harlan, a quiet older man who had lived next door for years. He looked pale, almost frantic, his breath visible in the chilly air. I opened the door just a crack. "Whistly, Emma," he whispered urgently, "don't go to work today. Just trust me, stay home." I blinked, confused. What? Why? Is everything okay? He glanced over his shoulder like someone might be watching, then looked back at me with eyes full of something I couldn't quite name, fear mixed with sorrow. "Please, just don't go. I can't explain right now, but you'll understand later. Stay home." Before I could ask anything else, he turned and walked back to his house, disappearing into the darkness. I stood there in the doorway, the cold air biting at my skin, feeling a strange chill run down my spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. I had been working at the same company for almost 7 years. It wasn't my dream job, but it paid the bills. After losing my husband 2 years earlier in a sudden accident, this job had become my anchor, something steady in a world that had already shattered once. I needed the routine, the paycheck, the sense of purpose. But Mr. Harlan had never been the dramatic type. He was the kind of neighbor who waved politely, mowed his lawn on Saturdays, and kept to himself. So why this sudden desperate warning? I closed the door, my mind spinning. Part of me wanted to laugh it off as some strange misunderstanding. Maybe he had a bad dream or heard a rumor. But another part of me, the part that had learned how quickly life can change, felt uneasy. Deep in my chest, something whispered that this wasn't nothing. I made coffee with shaking hands and stared at my phone. Work started at 8. Should I call in sick, text my boss, or just ignore the whole thing and go like any normal day? I had no idea that by choosing to listen to that early morning knock, my entire life was about to be rewritten. The hours after that knock dragged on in heavy silence. I paced the living room, still in my robe, replaying Mr. Harlan's words over and over. "Don't go to work today. Just trust me." By 7:30 a.m., curiosity and doubt won. I decided to at least drive by the office, see if anything looked unusual, but something stopped me. That uneasy feeling in my stomach grew stronger. Instead, I stayed home, calling in sick with a weak excuse about a migraine. Around 9 a.m., my phone started buzzing nonstop. Messages from colleagues flooded in. "Emma, are you okay? Did you hear what happened? Oh my God, it's chaos here." My heart dropped. I opened the news app with trembling fingers. There it was. A massive gas leak at our office building had gone undetected overnight. Around 8:15 a.m., just as people were settling in, something sparked. The explosion wasn't huge on the outside, but inside it was devastating. Toxic fumes had already been filling the vents for hours. Several colleagues were rushed to the hospital. 2 didn't make it. The entire building was evacuated, cordoned off, and declared unsafe. I stared at the screen, tears streaming down my face. If I had gone in that morning like usual, I would have been at my desk on the 2nd floor, right in the heart of it. But the real shock came later that morning. As I sat numb on the couch, Mr. Harlan knocked again, this time softer. I let him in. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept. "I overheard something last night," he said quietly, sitting across from me. "Your boss, he knew about the leak. The maintenance report came in days ago. They were supposed to shut everything down and get it fixed, but it would have cost money and delayed a big client deadline, so they told the maintenance crew to handle it quietly and keep it under wraps until after the quarterly meeting. My blood ran cold. My boss, the same man who had smiled at me during my performance review last month, praising my dedication after I worked through my grief, had chosen profits over people's lives. He knew the risk. He knew people could get hurt, and he said nothing. Worse, I remembered how he had pushed everyone to come in early that week for a team push, how he had dismissed complaints about strange smells last Friday as just old pipes. The betrayal hit me like a wave. I had given that company my loyalty when I had nothing left. I had stayed late, covered shifts, believed we were all in it together, and in return, they had been willing to risk my life and the lives of my friends to protect their bottom line. By noon, the full picture emerged. News reports mentioned possible negligence. Colleagues who made it out were sharing stories in group chats, how my boss had been seen rushing out of the building right before the alarms, looking panicked but not warning anyone still inside. I sat there, shattered. The man who had sent me flowers after my husband's funeral had been ready to let me walk into danger without a second thought. The pain was crushing, but beneath it, something else began to stir, a quiet, burning resolve. That afternoon, I didn't cry anymore. Instead, I started making calls. I reached out to the colleagues who'd been hospitalized. I gathered screenshots of old emails where maintenance had flagged the issue. I spoke with Mr. Harlan again. Turns out he had quietly recorded a late-night conversation he overheard between my boss and a supervisor through an open window. He had been too afraid to speak up publicly at first, but seeing me safe gave him courage. We didn't scream or make threats, we simply put together the truth. By the next morning, anonymous but detailed evidence landed with the local news station, the fire department investigators, and the corporate headquarters. Dates, times, ignored reports, cost-saving decisions, everything. The story exploded. Within days, the company faced massive scrutiny. My boss was placed on immediate leave. Investigations revealed he had personally signed off on delaying the repairs to meet quarterly targets. Several higher-ups were also implicated. He tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was undeniable. The smirk he once wore when brushing off safety concerns was gone. In press statements, he looked broken, shoulders slumped, eyes avoiding the cameras. The man who had played with people's lives for profit was now facing lawsuits, possible criminal charges, and the complete destruction of his reputation. The company offered settlements to the victims' families and to those injured. Safety protocols were suddenly reviewed and strengthened, but for me, the real justice wasn't just in his downfall. It was in the quiet strength I found afterward. I didn't stay at that job, of course. I left with my head held high and started something new, a small consulting business helping people recognize workplace red flags and protect themselves. Mr. Harlan and I became close friends. He still checks on me, and I on him. Looking back, that 5 a.m. knock didn't just save my life that day. It woke me up to how fragile trust can be, and how powerful it is when someone chooses to do the right thing anyway. If there's one thing this experience taught me, it's this. Sometimes the people we think are distant or unimportant end up being our greatest protectors. And when those in power betray us, we don't have to stay silent or broken. We can choose to stand in the truth, even if our voice shakes at first. Your life is worth more than any company's deadline. Your safety is worth more than someone else's profit. And when someone warns you with fear in their eyes, listen, because sometimes a single knock at 5 a.m. can change everything. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever had someone look out for you in an unexpected way, or if you've faced betrayal at work, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Remember, trust your instincts, protect your peace, and never let anyone convince you that your life is worth less than their success. Stay safe out there.